Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. We always love hearing from you about what's making you think, what's sparking debate. And this time around, one of you sent in something really interesting, a personal essay with a title that kind of makes you stop and think, I don't have a real job anymore,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with it. And it just immediately gets you wondering, doesn't it? What even is a real job these days? And what happens when you just decide that whole path isn't really for you?
Yeah, that's a really big question, isn't it? I mean, it makes you think about how we define ourselves, like what makes us valuable in the eyes of society. And this essay, it really does dive into that. It's all about the author's journey, their choice to step off that conventional path, the one with all the traditional markers of success, and just sort of pursue something different, something that feels more fulfilling to them. And we're lucky enough to have the author's own words to work with here. So in this deep dive, we're going to try to understand it all. Their journey, the big turning points, the philosophy behind it all. How did they end up in this, unconventional but seemingly content place?
So let's jump right in, shall we? The author starts off by describing their childhood. They were the classic gifted child, dreams of being an astronaut, studying physics.
Yeah.
It's like they were on this predetermined track to success right from the start. You can almost feel the weight of those expectations, can't you? Like so much was riding on them.
Yeah, absolutely. That gifted label can be a real burden. There's this constant pressure to perform, to live up to everyone's expectations. And usually those expectations are pretty narrow, It's all about academic achievement, getting into the right schools, landing that high-powered job. But what's so interesting here is what happens when that early trajectory kind of crashes and burns. That turning point they described during their physics degree, that's where things really shift.
And it's not just about struggling with the coursework, right? It's way more than that. It's a full-blown emotional and physical collapse. Like their whole system just shuts down, which I think makes you realize how unsustainable that kind of externally driven ambition can be. Have you ever felt that yourself or seen it in others, like when that drive just keeps pushing you until you hit a wall?
Oh, definitely. All the time, actually. I think it's pretty common, especially in our culture. We're so focused on achieving, on getting ahead, that we forget to take care of ourselves along the way. We neglect our well-being, our need for joy, for connection, all that. And in the author's case, it's like they hit that wall and then we're forced to confront how unhappy they really were.
Yeah, and it's not just academic stress we're talking about here. They really step back and take stock of their life, using what's sometimes called the big five categories of happiness: friends, family, relationships, hobbies, health.
Ah,
And honestly, their self-assessment is pretty bleak. They feel like they're coming up short in all of them. It's raw, it's honest, it's really eye-opening. Just think about it, right? Friends, family, relationships, hobbies, health. These are the core elements of a good life, and they were all suffering.
right. And when you look at the details within each of those categories, you really start to see the depth of their struggle. Like with friendships, they talk about social awkwardness, the challenges of having autism and ADHD. It was just so hard for them to connect with people. And then there's their family, a lack of support, a dark history. That's heavy stuff, right? It weighs on you. And of course, their self-esteem suffered, which made it difficult to form romantic relationships. It's a picture of real isolation.
And then there's hobbies, or rather the lack of hobbies, that brought them any real joy. Their childhood wasn't about exploring passions or just doing things for fun. It was all about studying, prepping for tests, extracurriculars that felt more like obligations than anything else. So they were missing that crucial outlet, the one that lets you relieve stress and just do something because you love it. It makes you wonder, right, about how we prioritize achievement over simple enjoyment, especially when it comes to kids.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it. When kids are constantly being pushed to achieve, to get those good grades, win those competitions, something has to give, right? And often, what gets pushed aside are the things that nurture their creativity, their curiosity, their love of just playing and having fun. And the author is living proof that this can have long-term consequences for their well-being. And on top of all of that, they're dealing with chronic health issues, which stem directly from all the stress and burnout. It's like their pursuit of conventional success was actually undermining their health and happiness.
So at this point, they're really struggling. What was it that offered them some kind of lifeline? Well, it was nature, specifically a place in Michigan called the Arb. It became their sanctuary, a space where they could just be without all the pressure and expectations. Has nature ever been that kind of refuge for you?
I thought you should ask that. I think a lot of us find solace in nature, don't we? It's like this innate human need. We crave that connection with the natural world, a place where we can just exist, no judgments, no expectations, just being present. And for the author, that's exactly what the ARB provided, this space to breathe, to reconnect with themselves.
And it's interesting because they also mention Into the Wild, that story about a guy who walks away from society to live in the Alaskan wilderness. And it really resonated with them, this idea of rejecting societal norms, even if it means taking a really drastic, maybe even dangerous path. I think it speaks to this deep longing for authenticity, even if it means going against the grain, doing things that other people might see as unconventional, risky even. What do you make of that book, that whole idea of choosing to live on your own terms, even if it means going to extremes?
Yeah, Into the Wild definitely captures something, doesn't it? It's romantic, idealistic, maybe even a little tragic. I mean, it's a story about escape, right? About seeking something more genuine, more meaningful than what mainstream society has to offer. And for the author, it seems like it really speaks to that yearning to break free, to live a life that aligns with their own values, not someone else's.
Which brings us to the concrete steps they took. First, they decline a job offer. And it sounds like it was their only offer. I mean, that takes guts, right? Or maybe, as they put it, it was a kind of freedom that comes from hitting rock bottom, knowing that things couldn't get much worse. And then there's the move to Arizona, that 2,000-mile road trip.
It's such a powerful symbol, isn't it? Like a physical manifestation of leaving the past behind and heading towards something new.
Totally. I mean, can you imagine
Yeah.
driving 2,000 miles? It's like this epic journey, a metaphor for transformation. They're literally leaving everything behind and driving into the unknown, driven by this need for change, for something more authentic. And they even talk about taking these spontaneous road trips later on whenever they're feeling down. It's like nature became this constant source of comfort and grounding for them. And then there's their decision to pursue freelancing and YouTube. These are not exactly known for stability, especially compared to a traditional career path. But it seems like for the author, the emotional rewards, the freedom, the feeling of being their own boss, it outweighed the financial uncertainty. And you know what I found really insightful? Their description of the crash out mentality. This idea that once you've hit your lowest point, you're kind of liberated because the fear of failing, of losing more, it just disappears. Have you ever experienced that kind of shift?
That's fascinating, isn't it? The crash out mentality. It's like this radical acceptance, right? You've already been through the worst, so what do you have left to lose? And that can be surprisingly empowering. It frees you up to take risks, to try things you might not have considered before because you're not as worried about failing. It's like
Right.
a fresh start.
So what were the reasons behind this big decision, this choice to step off the beaten path? It wasn't just a random whim, was it? The author lays out some pretty clear reasons. The feeling of never really belonging, never being fully accepted by society, acknowledging certain disadvantages, like their height, their neurodivergence, even their perceived attractiveness, and most importantly, the lack of a strong support system. Those are some pretty powerful factors.
Oh, for sure. Those are deep-seated feelings, And they can be incredibly motivating. That sense of being an outsider, of not fitting in, it can be really isolating. And if you believe that the game is rigged against you, then why play? Why follow the rules if you don't think they'll ever lead you to where you want to go? And then there's the realization that success isn't guaranteed, no matter how hard you try. All that struggle, all that sacrifice, it might not actually lead to a better tomorrow. That can be a real turning point in how someone views the world.
Exactly. It's like, why keep chasing a future that might never come, especially if the present is so miserable? It's about finding joy and contentment in the now, even if it doesn't look like what society tells us we should be doing. And this is where things get really philosophical, don't they? It all comes back to that question we mentioned earlier. Why play by the rules of a society that never accepted you in the first place? I mean, that really makes you think, doesn't it? About how we define success, about who gets to make the rules.
Oh, absolutely. It's a powerful question. And it challenges that whole traditional script, the one that says you go to school, get a job, work until you retire, and that's it. That's the good life. But the author is saying, wait a minute. If this system wasn't built for me, if I don't even feel welcome here, why should I buy into its definition of success? Why should I follow its rules? It's a critique of the whole system, and it forces us to confront our own assumptions about what a good life really means.
Yeah, it's not just a personal story anymore. It becomes this bigger statement about societal expectations, about who benefits from those expectations and who gets left behind. And the alternative the author presents is really beautiful in a way. It's all about living in the present moment, finding joy and meaning on your own terms. It's like they're rewriting their own life story, creating their own definition of fulfilling existence. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if we all have that power within us to redefine our own narratives.
For sure. And it's not necessarily about everyone quitting their jobs and running off into the wilderness. It's about recognizing that we have choices,
Hmm.
that we can define success in a way that's meaningful to us, even if it looks different from what society expects. It's about choosing our own path, and trusting that it will lead us somewhere good.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into I don't have a real job anymore, and I'm okay with it, what are some of the key takeaways that resonated with you? I think for me, one of the biggest is this idea that freedom can come from feeling like you have nothing left to lose. That's pretty counterintuitive, isn't it? But
Yeah.
there's a real power in it.
Yeah, it's like a paradox. You hit rock bottom and suddenly you're free because you're not so afraid anymore. And that fearlessness, it opens up all sorts of possibilities. It lets you experiment, to take risks, to follow your curiosity without worrying so much about failing. It's liberating.
And another thing, right? The absence of conventional success doesn't mean your life is meaningless or unfulfilled. In fact, for the author, it seems like the opposite happened. It led to more freedom, more joy, more contentment. Does that challenge the way you think about what it means to be successful?
It definitely makes you question things, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are we all striving for? The author found a way to live a life that's rich in other ways, even if it doesn't check all the traditional boxes. They've got their connection with nature, their creative outlets, their sense of inner peace. And those things, those are valuable too. They matter. It's about broadening our definition of success, recognizing that there are many ways to live a good life.
And ultimately, it's about living authentically, right?
Yeah.
Even if it means embracing uncertainty and going against the grain, it's about choosing a path that feels right for you, even if it's not the easy one. Have you ever felt that tension, that pull between what society expects of you and what you truly want for yourself?
Oh, I think we all have at some point, right? It's a universal struggle. We want to belong, we want to be accepted, but sometimes that means compromising who we are. The author's story is a reminder that we can choose a different path. It might be harder, it might be scarier, but it's ours. And that's worth something, right?
Absolutely. And the last takeaway, I think, is this. We all have the power to define our own version of peace and fulfillment. It's not about what society tells us. It's about looking inward and figuring out what truly brings us joy. And that's no small feat, is it? It takes some serious inner work.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It takes honesty, self-awareness, the willingness to question everything you thought you knew about success and happiness. It's about tuning into that inner voice, the one that knows what you truly need, even if it's whispering something totally different from what the world is shouting at you. And then it's about having the courage to follow that voice wherever it leads.
So as you've been listening to this deep dive into, I don't have a real job anymore, and I'm okay with it, we wanted to leave you with this thought. What if you took some time to reflect on your own life, your own definition of success? Are there any areas where you might find some unexpected freedom by questioning those old assumptions, those ingrained beliefs about what a good life should look like? Is there any part of you that's craving something different?
Yeah, maybe there's a dream you've been putting off, a passion you've been ignoring. Maybe you're on a path that looks good on paper, but doesn't feel right in your heart. What would happen if you started listening to that inner voice a little more closely? What if you took a small step, just one tiny step, towards something that feels more authentic, more you?
We encourage you to keep thinking about the author's story, about the choices they made, and how those insights might apply to your own life. This deep dive, we hope, has given you some food for thought, and maybe, just maybe, it'll spark a little revolution in how you think about work, life, and happiness.
It's about finding your own version of okay, right?
Absolutely. So keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep. Until next time.